Let's discuss this case even further and what we are likely to see at today's sitting. We're now joined by Daniel Steyn, who is the co-author of the Thabo Bester story, alongside legal expert Nthabiseng Dubazana. A very good morning to you both. Thank you so much for joining us on Newzroom Afrika. And Nthabiseng, perhaps let's start with you, as the Facebook rapist appears in court alongside his 9 co-accused implicated in this escape from the Mangaung Correctional Center in 2022. I mean, my colleague Linda Mnisi has really ironed out the administrative process that's likely to unfold this morning with the conference. Insofar as the importance and the groundwork that today sets for this entire case, how significant is it?
It is pretty important to set out the groundwork, like you just said, because it kind of cuts the time in which the trial will be going on. So the purpose of a pre-trial conference is to see if there are things like the 220 admissions that are going to be made. If that's going to be done, then we're not going to deal with those issues during the trial. And then we deal with issues if there's not sufficient disclosure in certain aspects, so that the state has time to disclose certain aspects to the defense. And then over and above that, the issues that are going to be disputed during the trial, then we iron them out. In other words, we need to know what it is that we're going to be focusing on in the main trial, apart from things that we are saying that they're common cause, or we're going to do 220 admissions, stuff like that. So all of that has to be done with all the attorneys, the state, and the presiding officer, and then there has to be a certificate which is going to be issued to confirm that the pre-trial was had, and this is the agreement. These are the things that are going to be discussed during the main trial, and then the next date is where we're going to go on with just the issues that are in dispute.
Daniel, as someone who wrote quite extensively about Thabo Bester, what does the extent of what he did to not only land up in prison but escape from it as well, what does that tell us about the kind of person he is? I mean, all of this has come to court because an entire body of Katlego was allegedly used as a decoy for him to escape.
Yeah, thank you. So we know about Thabo Bester's crimes that he committed from a very early age. Rumor has it that from the age of 4, he was scamming people out of money. As a teenager, he would prowl the streets of Hyde Park, pretending to be a school child, to get middle-class women to give him money for food or for traveling to Durban for supposed sports events. And then he went on to run several media companies, supposed television and reality TV programs, where he would attract models, professional crew, in most instances would not pay them, would attract sponsorships, and he would take the money and run. So he's got this, he's had this track record of scamming people and of fraud. And then, of course, the reason why he was sent to prison in 2011 was because he murdered at least one person. He raped at least 2 women. So I think that tells us about the type of person he is. His time in prison was spent also trying to scam people, run media businesses from inside prison. He approached several women in the media industry, some of whom visited him in prison. And one of those was Nandipha Magudumana, with whom he established several companies, including an elaborate property management company. It seems that Magudumana was also at least peripherally involved in his 21st Media company, that he was scamming people from inside prison, video conferencing into that conference at the Hilton Hotel in Sandton from within prison. And I think that gives us an idea of how he managed to escape from prison. He allegedly bribed several prison officials who are going to be appearing in court alongside him today, with not a lot of money, bearing in mind that prison officials do not make a lot of money. So it did not take a lot to convince them to help him escape from prison. And it seems that the amount of money he promised and the amount of money that he and Magudumana allegedly paid, there's a big difference there.
Nthabiseng, As Daniel paints a picture of the kind of person that the court is going to be dealing with today, in October last year, when the state withdrew charges against the G4S employees, the Nthabiseng Dubazana failed to appear before the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court after she reportedly collapsed while waiting in holding cells at the Park Road police station. What role does she play, and how will she be held accountable within this case as we start off with the pre-trial conference?
She would most likely be held as an accomplice to the crime itself, that she knew in detail what happened. So basically, even if there is no direct evidence, because unfortunately we're not privy to the docket, but even if there is no direct evidence that links her to everything, she may just be convicted on the doctrine of common purpose, because she knew what was happening. She did not stop it from happening, and she benefited from it, because at the end of the day, her and Thabo Bester ended up skipping the country, and then they had to be brought back in order for them to face the charges that they are facing today. So unless she strikes a deal with the state in terms of Section 204 of the Criminal Procedure Act, she is not going to have any different sentence that Thabo would probably face at the end of this situation. So we will wait to see what her defense attorneys are intending on doing. But looking at the track record of her trying to overturn this in the High Court, overturning the fact that she was extradited incorrectly or illegally, and therefore she should not be facing these charges, the likelihood of her becoming a state witness is very slim to none. So we are just expecting her to just go through the motions of the entire trial, and then we'll see the sentence being handed down in a similar manner to that of Thabo Bester.
Yeah. And Daniel, in exposing Thabo Bester's faked death, as you were on the story and revealed the finer details, what does the story of Thabo Bester tell us about the web of complicity in South Africa's broken prison system?
Yeah, so from the start that we started investigating this, my colleague Marisha Damons was first to start asking questions when we heard rumors that something was awry in the conclusion that Thabo Bester had died in his prison cell. From the start, we were facing, we were being stonewalled by the Department of Correctional Services and the police, and we received very few answers. And it became bizarrely clear to us by February 2023, so that was almost a year after the escape happened. It became clear to us that the Department of Correctional Services and the police were not going to come clear and were not going to inform the public about Thabo Bester's escape unless we took on the role of pushing them and then exposing it ourselves as the media. So that already tells us something about the lack of accountability within the Department of Correctional Services and the police, and the ability of those bodies to keep these secrets from the public. In terms of the prison itself, I mean, as I said, we've got several prison officials facing charges in this trial. 3 prison officials were charged, but charges against them have since been withdrawn. And it seems unlikely that of the 30 people on duty, the more than 30 people on duty that night in the prison, that only 5 or 6 of them were complicit in this. It would have required, in the words of Justice Edwin Cameron, the inspecting judge of prisons, it would have required at least the majority of them to have turned a blind eye to what was happening.
Yeah.
And I think this says a lot about the ability of someone to use money and to use clout to get out of prison and almost get away with it.
And before we let you go, Nthabiseng, we know that as this pre-trial gets underway over Thabo Bester, there's also another family that was involved here. They lost a son, Katlego family, now planning their legal case to sue the state. What leg do they have to stand on with their case as they pursue it?
Well, I don't know if they have a strong enough case to sue the state, seeing as the perpetrator was not somebody who was a member of the state entity. However, if the body that was then, because from my understanding, I could be wrong, but from my understanding, the body was already in the state mortuary, even though they didn't know where he was, because he had left home for a number of years. So they didn't know where he was at the time that he died. So in a way, in that area, when I think about it, they don't have much of a leg to stand on to sue the state, because the state is not liable as a matter of instance, because Nandipha was the one that allegedly went to go and retrieve the body in order to use it in the escaping plan. So the fact that they had no knowledge of the whereabouts of their child up until the moment that the body was found, how then do they interlink the state to be liable for the death and the usage of the body in the escape itself? The only person that I foresee that they have a stronger leg to sue would be Thabo Bester, would be Nandipha Magudumana, and the other accused persons in this particular instance. I don't foresee it to be a strong case against the state, a civil case against the state.
Yeah, very well. Thank you so much for your time, legal expert Nthabiseng Dubazana, as well as Daniel Steyn, who is the co-author of the Thabo Bester story. Let me thank you both for your time.